We're not crowding down here. I just want to welcome you all and happy National Trails Day, and thank you for coming to this dedication and celebration and memorial of Pat Fletcher. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bridget Likely, and I work for AMC as the coordinator of the New England Trail. And unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to ever meet Pat, but just talking to all of you and all the stories that you have, makes me feel like I knew him and wish that I knew him. And it's just so wonderful to see the community that he created through this trail. So just to start off, we're just going to have Charlie Tracy with the Park Service come and say a few words, as well as Jan Nettler, who's the chair of the Berkshire chapter of AMC. And just talk a little bit about Pat, and then we're going to move things back up there where there's more space and kind of open it up to the group to share their stories of Pat and how they've touched everyone's lives in the trail. Right.
I'm Charlie Tracy. I'm the superintendent of the New England National Scenic Trail. I work for the National Park Service. I'm really happy to be here, and I liked, Bridget, what you were saying about celebration and remembering and dedication, and actually all of those things remind me of Pat, because he was such an amazing character and had so much energy. I loved working with him, and I'm eager to hear actually many other stories about him. I was actually just down at the International Trail Symposium in Dayton, Ohio, and was talking to people about Pat there. Some thru hikers who Pat helped to get across the Connecticut River. They're like, other people were saying, what are you going to do? And they were like, oh, you call this guy Pat, and he'll come out and get you across, I loved being...
Gotta go.
What's that?
You just say, gotta go.
Gotta go. Yeah. I also remember Pat at meetings where he had so much energy and information, but sometimes we had to move on to the next thing. But that didn't always happen, But it was really, it was fun. It was really fun. I also just have another memory of him after one of these winter trail adopters meetings. It's a really cold night, and Pat's out there with his bike, and he's plugging in his suit warmer. He's ready to go, and even at the end of a whole long meeting like that, his enthusiasm and spirit was just so vivid and so vibrant. But anyway, this is a beautiful memorial for him. I think he would have loved. What strikes me about it was just it's sort of the informal and simple and beautiful, and I think those are great ways to remember Pat. So thank you everybody for coming. Jen.
Hi everybody, I'm Jan Nettler. I'm the chair of the Berkshire chapter of the Appalachian Mountain Club, and I only got to know Pat a little while before he died, but it was Pat always made me laugh. He was the actually acting chair when I started. We had no chair for a year, and so 4 people rotated. So he was the chair, and he had great skills, but he wasn't the greatest chairperson. Running a meeting was not his expertise.
Easiest month. Sign me up for life.
Yeah, and he could, as Charlie said, he knew a ton of stuff, and he can tell you stories forever. And I really appreciate him, and he educated me a lot. So that was a great thing for me as I became the new chair a couple of years ago. And so most of you know him more than I do, but he was like the Trails chair for the Berkshire chapter for, I'm not sure, I think around 17 years.
1993. I have an official letter appointing him as Trails chair.
And I know it. My mom throws nothing away.
I have to keep finding these things.
And it's in a file somewhere.
Right now it's on the top of the file, because there's certain things I've kept. But 1993 he was appointed.
So almost 20 years.
Now 24.
24. I can't add that much. I was a math professor. I should be.
Retired, man. You're allowed to slip a little.
But anyway, so he was Trails chair, and then when it became the New England Trail chair, he became the New England Trail chair, and you know, he worked on this trail and loved it and helped promote it, and you know, was instrumental in making it exist and keep going and become part of the national system. And not only here, you know, you guys worked on Upper Goose Pond Cabin, and so it wasn't just this trail, but this is an important trail for Pat. I love the boulder, you know, and I love the placement. I'm not sure Pat would like it. I mean, I'm not sure he wants to be so notarized, but he was worth it, and I'm glad that we're all here to remember him once again, and people every time they walk by here will remember him some more. I'm sorry if you can't hear me, I'm not the loudest speaker, but yeah, I miss him, even though I only knew him a little while, and I'm sure many of you miss him a lot. So thanks for coming, and I think we're going to
let's move up and yeah.
Mike, just Mike Slogar, I'm one of the volunteers and work with the trail crew here. This site was selected, you know, for two reasons. One, it's the start of the trail, and anybody that I've worked with that for like 15, 18 years. But it's the start of the trail, and Pat, I don't know, wore out a couple of pickups driving between here and Monadnock all the time. And he put a lot of effort into protecting the flag lot coming in with the town of Southwick. I wasn't with him in those things, but he put a lot of time and effort to secure the site, to protect it, and then to make this bridge happen. He was pretty much the driving force behind getting this done, so seems like a fitting place. Started the trail, and he was, I came to think of him as the ambassador of the trail, because he would, as his ability to swing tools waned, he would talk to anybody, anywhere, for as long as he possibly could keep their attention about the trail.
It's genetic.
Never let it go.
It's genetic.
But the value, you come to realize that, you know, there's times when he would almost be a distraction to the project.
No.
But then you realize the value in everything he said and got people informed about the trail is. So he's really special, and the stuff he did that we don't even know about, we haven't found out about yet. As you said, he kept lousy records.
It was also fitting that he was doing trail work the day he died.
That morning.
He was up in Mount Grace, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right on this trail. So anyway, let's go back.
Yeah, we'll head up to the tent and make it more open for everyone to share. Thank you. I know. I'm taking a risk.
Nobody moves. We'll just stay here.
Tell you where she plans to stage people?
Because I'm not even sure we'll meet in August.
Really?
We're going to discuss that. I think we might. We did last year, but
Okay.
but if I know there's something to talk about, then it's more likely we'll.
Okay.
You did a great job. Yeah. So we're really looking forward to that. Because they live right around the corner from where I live.
I try to get 2,000 a day, but yesterday was just, it was a long weekend, it was really
I have not been invited.
I finally got my
You know, they have this new philosophy
to at least get, I marched.
about their board. We're a governing board as opposed to a managing board. I wish you did. So whatever the action was. I'll find it. Okay, we'll talk to you later. All right.
Feeling better, good chief.
This is
reflect. I lost all my
to keep getting food and drinks as I'm talking, but I just wanted, there's a few people that couldn't make it to this, and they had some stories of Pat they wanted to share, and so I just want to share those with all of you. And Dennis Clark has also offered to record people if they want to tell their own stories and share it on Southwick's public television station, if you're comfortable with that. So I'm going to share the two stories that I have from people, and then feel free if you have your own stories you would like to share to come up and share those, because I'm sure everyone would love to hear them. So the first one I have is from Heather Klisch, who's the AMC's Director of Conservation and Policy, and unfortunately she's recovering from foot surgery right now, and so she couldn't make it here, but she had some things she wanted to share about her relationship with Pat, and so I'm going to read that for you all. I met Pat back in 2001, shortly after I started at AMC, and we were getting underway with the request for a National Scenic Trail feasibility study with Congressman Olver. What I will always remember about Pat was his constant enthusiasm for the M&M Trail and the news he always had to share about what he was doing on the trail. What arrangements were being made with the landowners, in a sense that whatever needed to get done would somehow get done through his contacts and his friendships. I could tell he loved being outdoors because whenever I talked to him about what was happening on the trail, he would often tell me about an upcoming stint at Upper Goose Pond, that's a popular overnight cabin shelter on the AT, going out or coming back from a little hunting or fishing, or either coming back from or looking forward to a ride out on his motorcycle. One of my most fun memories of Pat was a group hike I took with him several years back at Wendell State Forest. It may have even been a National Trails Day hike. What I didn't know before we started was how much Pat also knew about edible plants in the forest. Pat had so many stories about this particular forest. We walked some, and we stopped and talked and learned a lot. He was so clearly in his element, sharing his knowledge and with the group, sharing what he knew about the forest, and sharing the views. Everyone loved it. Pat didn't boast about his knowledge or skills or accomplishments. He just did. And he did a lot, with never-ending passion. These memories, and even just writing this, bring a smile to my face. He left his mark on the trail and in the spirit of just doing that will endure. I know this spot in Southwick was special to him. I am so glad to have a bit of his memory so visible here.
Nice.
And then the other story I have is from Harry and Sue Shawbar, and also Linda, who were sad they couldn't make it, but also have their story to share. So, a note from Linda Gale, Susan Sharbaugh, and Harry Sharbaugh. We have worked on the trail with Pat on numerous occasions over the past 15 years. When myself and Susie first moved to Irving 15 years ago, we discovered we had the trail and it needed work. We got lost on our first attempt to hike it, found out who was in charge, Pat, and gave him a call. He promptly recruited Susie and I as adopters, came up and gave us a tutorial on what to do. Linda joined us shortly thereafter, and the three of us started working gradually northward. Each time we called in to tell him we finished a piece, he gave us another further northward piece. When a Boy Scout troop got lost in the segment between Route 32 and Winchester Road, Pat and Chris gave us the task of resetting the trail, and our trail building career had begun. With this and each subsequent relocation, Pat was the guiding light. He would give us the situation and overall objective and turn us loose. When we finally settled on a route, he and usually a third person would come up for a critique session, sort of like making a thesis presentation to the professors. Numerous changes resulted from these hikes, and DCR Forest Manager hikes, a route finally adopted, and the easy part, the actual trail building, could begin. Again, Pat often dropped in for one of our work social hikes. Pat and I often had long trail discussions, both in person and on the phone. It was clear that he was spending considerable effort working on the Quabbin reroute, a project requiring a lot of dedication and perseverance, overcoming a mind-boggling set of obstacles. His final act was working on Mount Grace water bars with Linda, Ray, and myself, with Pat providing the guidance. He drove me home in his new pickup, extolling its virtues. When we said goodbye at our house, we were conjuring up our next venture. What a shock it was learning about his demise, and our trail ventures will never be the same without him. Farewell, Pat. We miss you. But maybe, just maybe, we'll meet again on another trail in a distant place. Sue, Linda, and Harry.
Oh, that was nice.
So I'm going to open it up now to anyone else who might want to share.
I'm Chip Prey from the Pioneer Valley Hiking Club, president of Pioneer Valley Hiking Club. We've been the maintainers of Sections 1, which is this section, and Section 2 that goes all the way to Westfield River since 1999. We were recruited by Pat Fletcher, as a matter of fact. So as far as those notes go, I can definitely relate to all of them. I've been working down here personally with Pat Fletcher for the last 7 or 8 years. Pat would always deliver the lawnmower down here. We have a big Bobcat lawnmower, and been mowing this for 7 or 8 years, maybe 2 or 3 times a month. And Pat would always bring it on his pickup truck and lower it down. I was always like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And he would take it down, I would mow the lawn, and he would do all the trimming along here. So I miss him a lot, because we spent a lot of time working down here. Then when our club would have maintenance down here, which is a lot because we're a very active club, Pat would always show up for our maintenances, every single one. Maybe 1 or 2 out of the last 10 years that I can remember he didn't show up for. And once in a while we'd go to EB's. That's our tradition, is we do a club maintenance and we take the club to EB's, everyone that participated in maintenance. So Pat put in the wood boxes, wood duck boxes with his son. We have many ties to the area, but most of my ties with the area correspond with Pat's memory. And in my opinion, I feel that Pat Fletcher is the father of the New England Trail. Professor Banfield is the father of the M&M Trail, but Pat Fletcher was the father of the New England Trail. Many meetings at the Conservation Commission. He would make every single one in Southwick. The people in Southwick, I can't thank them enough for the money they contributed towards the bridge, especially. All the AMC people that purchased the bridge, and Mike Slogar and Bridget Likely. I appreciate your efforts here so much, and your leadership in placing this memorial. Thank you.
I'm Mike Fletcher. I'm the one that, I know all your names. I know all the schemes that he used to suck you guys into. Okay? He was always there to help you guys organize, and get you an idea to get you going in the right direction of how you could get it done, and then he would move on. He's moved on now, away from us, but I look around and I see all the good things that my dad did. He really motivated a lot of people to get out and do things. The talking long, yep, that's a genetic thing. I'm going to try and keep this short. Okay? But it was always a history lesson. You talk to a lot of people that knew him, and when you went somewhere, it wasn't just, oh, we're going to go for a walk in the woods. It was, it's this tree, it's that mushroom. I never ate any of that stuff because I knew he wasn't always sure. He was pretty sure it was okay to eat. He wasn't going to eat it, but, it was great to get all the stories and the history and everything that my dad would provide when you went out in the woods for a day. It really was. And that was what I really think most about my dad. That was the fun part of being out in the woods. And it did. He motivated a lot of people. And I really thank everybody for all the stories and all the help that you guys gave him throughout his life. And it was nice to see the accomplishments that he did and the places that he went and the people that he met. Thanks. Thanks again.
I'm Tom Rich, longtime section maintainer. I take care of Section 18 from Mount Grace up to the Mass border, New Hampshire border. And I started when the state was taking care of the trail, and as Pat used to say, he inherited me when he inherited the trail many years ago. Favorite story would be we had a grant to put up some nice signs at the parking areas along the southern section. Pat recruited me one day to go out and spend some time putting them all in, and we got up by Gate 8 in Pelham to put one up by an old YMCA camp. We drive up, And right in the middle of the trail is a brand new house going in, and you could actually walk through the guy's garage where and the guy said to us, he says, I just wondered what those white things were on the trees. So Pat and I kind of scrambled and figured out a reroute around the house, and that's one of my favorites for working with Pat.
Hello. So I am Christine Fletcher Penny. So I'm Pat's daughter. I think about myself as being the first recruit. And I think about the early years as being the years where he learned all the things to kind of bring him to his later years. So there were some rough starts, right? I mean, I was going to tell the snake story, right? How do you learn when a snake is dead? Well, you probably kind of bring one home and check it out, right? And you've got a bird dog that helps you to find it, and you bring it home, and what do? You put it in a bucket in the garage, and then you wait until your wife goes into the garage to do something.
To let the puppy out.
And then you discover, well, this is not a dead one. So now you've learned. Now you've learned. It's not a dead one. This is a live one. So now you've learned, right? And Mike was saying he learned very well not to eat the things that were identified as
sassafras tea
somewhat
that he
identified.
made.
I know. All the teas and the roots and all these famous elixirs and all of that. So we have a lot of that in us, I think. And I was actually kind of reflecting back to some of the early years. So he didn't always live in a forest setting. It started out in a city setting on a busy road next to a gas station across from the fire department with cars whizzing by. But every weekend and every summer he went back to his roots. So lived in Rhode Island, born and raised there, spent the entire summer barefoot, no shoes, no hiking boots at all. And I remember grumbling and bumbling about every restaurant that would have a word with him about not wearing his shoes because he wanted to be close to nature, because that's who he was. And it wasn't just the hiking, it was the boating and the fishing and the lobstering and the scuba diving and the clamming, and that was just the water summer stuff, right? So then the winter, and then the snowshoeing, and then the skiing and more and more and more. I mean, there was the hunting, right? So the bow and arrows and the black powder and the motorcycles and the racing and the
She was 5 weeks old. We drove to New York, so
first victim.
Plus the bike didn't start when he got there, but that was okay.
And so I was putting on my hiking boots today, and I was thinking how he helped me to pick these out. So my husband, who's on a business trip today, couldn't be here. He also has a pair of boots that my dad helped to pick out because we decided for our honeymoon we wanted to do something active, because we'd heard all the stories about my dad hiking, and I realized I had never been to the Grand Canyon, and I thought, what a great thing. But I didn't have the right shoes, and he helped me to, I think he did his own research just for me so that I was prepared for all this. And so I think that a lot of the research he did, may have initially been very self-centered, but I really do think that he really wanted to help so many people with all that he did. And the hiking shoes were just part of it, and all the activities. Oh my gosh, so many, too many to list and too many to mention, but I thought I'd share a little bit with you about the early years and how that was for all of us. And I do, as Mike said, I thank you all for being here, because this is really, really, really special. Thank you.
Good job, you killed me with those boots.
Hi, good morning. I'm Ray Gerard. I'm a maintainer up in Northfield and Warwick. A year ago, I got a call from a good friend of mine, Harry Shavo. It says, hey, Pat's coming up. We're going to do some work on Mount Grace. Little did I know that would be his last work project. But we were clearing water bars. But my fond memory is Pat and I leaning over a culvert, reaching inside, pulling out sticks and stones and whatever to get the water to flow appropriately. But it was bittersweet because I had a chance to work with this really great guy, and little did I know that he wouldn't be with us the next day. But I felt honored to be able to come down here and work with his son and others on the club to get this memorial ready and be a part of that. And I did it for him and for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a room for you. Need fuel. Get out of here.
I'm Harold Butch Akey. I'm Harold around here, but I'm Butch back in Greenfield. Pat and I met over 20 years ago. Quite a trip. Don't know where to begin, but obviously I get emotional when I talk about Pat. He was such a giver. All of us are givers here, and that's great. Always good to be with givers. Lynn Pickle was the chair before Pat took it over, and Lynn, like all the chairs for the trail before Pat, basically served 1 year as the trail's chair. And they moved on to other things. Someone would take a job like when Pickle did, he became the treasurer. That went for 2 or 3 years for him. But Pat was the only one that I know, and I checked the records at AMC, that had the trail chair for over 22 years. About that time when I met Pat, I was hiking with Lynn at the time, and I recall where Lynn enlisted his services, and Pat says, fine, he says, and Harold will take it the year after. And I says, well, we'll see, Pat. So I didn't step up to the plate, but I certainly had an awful lot of opportunity to learn a lot about maintaining the trail from Pat. Pat did a lot of other things besides trail work, and we all know that. Most of us know that. One of the things that was really neat was I'm a member of the Lions Club, and one of our projects is to aid the blind, or sight impaired as we call them. And I don't know, maybe about 12 years ago or so, I organized a group to take sight impaired people for a canoe trip up at DAR State Forest. And I said, well, Harold, you get yourself into something pretty good. You're going to call and get some help. Call Pat, Kathy, not a problem, we'll be there. Call the bowlers, not a problem, we'll join you. And we ended up with a good cadre of people and about 6 canoes. And if you ever want to have a delight, watch these blind, sight impaired people out in a canoe on a lake. And they would have a ball. And of course we'd feed them and they'd eat whatever. And Pat and Kathy were also helpful, so helpful as all the other volunteers. We did it for a good 6 or 8 years. But one other side story I've got to tell you is, I said to Pat when he said that, you know, you can keep maintaining Section 3 in West Springfield. I said, wonderful. I said, one problem, Pat. He said, what's that? I said, we got to have a bridge over the Westfield River. Well, there's probably a couple people here today that could really be instrumental in helping us. I won't name who they may be, but they come from a lot further distance than probably many of us. And someday we'll probably get that suspension bridge or rope bridge or figure it out.
Some kind of portage.
There you go.
The creative solution.
But I said to Pat, I says, you know, after we get the bridge, I said, then I'm done. I said, you know, no more trail work for me. I said, no more maintaining the trail. So I know now that he's in a better place to help us. And I'm sure he's working on it.
Believe me, he did. He researched the railroad that crossed that bridge.
Oh yeah.
Went up to Northampton and we had to look up this canal railroad that crossed it. And researched the, you know, where the bridge, it was just a short line, business line.
Yeah.
And said, yeah. He says, yep, and called up Harold and told him about it. That's next on the list. That's next.
It was a long list.
Yeah. Or he kept talking about the people that floated across on their little inflatables when the river was low, when they had to cross the trail from Robinson to the other side of the road.
Well, I'm sure he's still working on it, Kathy.
Yeah, we're still working on that one.
Actually, it kind of occurred to me that maybe he started, so some of you may know he worked for Conrail, the freight rail system, and I wonder if he started with Conrail to get like the inside scoop, so that because he kind of knew maybe that they were going to convert them to trails at some point. I don't know, but I kind of occurred to me as we're kind of coming here today and thinking about his work with
also
trails.
Bike trails, which Dad worked on, rail to trail.
And what was the story about the tiny bridge in Westfield? They were concerned about the bridge not being able to hold heavy things.
Like a fire truck?
Like a fire truck or emergency vehicles.
Dad went to meetings in Westfield and said, well, I work for the railroad, I'm also a Westfield resident, and if a 100-ton train can pass over this bridge, I'm sure you don't need to spend this money. Because a fire truck could do it.
So we all use our resources, and he had a lot of them. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
But I think they built the bridge anyway.
I know.
They had to.
I know I spoke before. I just want to say one or two more words. I see here a lot of people who do a lot of volunteer work, and that's really crucial for keeping the trails well done and making opportunities for people to be outdoors. And Pat was Trails Chair for, you just told me, 24 years or so. But I just want to recognize that we have new chairs for this year, to successors to Pat. I just want to recognize them. We have Dana and Heather being co-chairs. We needed two people to sort of. So just raise your hand. I see Dana there and Heather.
Going to say something anyway, but I'm Heather. I took over. Oops, sorry. I took over Pat's position as chair, mostly because it's really hard to fill a position, especially when you know who is before you. But when I was family programs chair for the AMC, Pat was in that rotating president position, and at that time we just started. I think we had just adopted Section 4. And he said, Heather, you know what? You should be president. I'm like, no. How about I adopt this section of trail instead? Is that okay? And so I felt like I kind of owed him a little bit of a little obligation to take over his position, at least just to, say I respect you and I'm going to try to do the best I can. Unfortunately, I'm not retired and I can't pick up people off to the Westfield River. I wish I could. But, so it's only been a few months and I'm trying to do my best to at least do the paperwork and make sure everybody's, communicating well, and that's the best I can do. Dana is my co-chair because he's my Section 4 co-adopter. We used to have a venturing crew, so Pat would meet with us our very, very first work party ever on our trail, and it was great because he goes, all right, there are like a million blazes here. We need to take care of these blazes. There's a million of them, and this is how you use these tools. And that was our first Picmatic, and it was great. So we had a whole crew of teens with us, and Pat making sure everybody knew what they're doing. And I'm sure these teens are going to learn a lot and continue working. I mean, we have our section had to get rerouted, and he created the reroute, which is still actually maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before he passed away. He flagged our section of trail and he said, this is what we're going to do now. We can do this. And then he passed away. So I can't do this. But fortunately the teen crew is going to come and do it for us. But it was great. It definitely made me want to step up and learn more about trails because he was so kind and generous and so just well thought. So well thought and well spoken about the trail that anybody that talked to him would want to do more. So it was just a privilege and an honor to have worked with Pat, even for the short period of time I did. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Friends, family, hikers. I know he'd be embarrassed. But he knows he was loved and appreciated. And when we first moved up here in '78, I think he was lost for a while, and then he walked up on the mountain behind us and found grouse and the trail, and he started. And then he started doing a little hiking on the M&M. And then one day we went up with his friend that he met, Pete Richardson, who couldn't be here today because he had a family problem. And one day we went up. I'm not good on where we were. I might have been somewhere in I know it was in Massachusetts because
Somewhere.
Pete came back.
Going hiking somewhere today.
Pete came back to the trail, and I was supposed to pick the two of them up. And Pete said, he's going to hike until he hits the border. And I says, he doesn't have any food, he doesn't have any anything, he doesn't have any clothes, he doesn't have a sleeping bag. And it's like, he was gone for a week, and that started it. And he did 1,000 miles of the AT a week, 2 weeks at a time, blisters and all. Loved it, loved every minute of it. Did some of the 100-mile wilderness, fell in love with all of that. You know, in between his hunting for his bear, which he finally got a bear, and his turkeys, and he finally got his turkey. And, you know, we had Albert and Bernice had to cook it because I said, I'm not cooking that thing. It was enough to eat it, never mind, you know, choke it down. It's like, okay, you know, did it still have a head? I don't know. Did we have to spit out pellets? You never know. But, you know, it was, you know, 50-something years of adventure with Pat. Going out before we moved up here, like my daughter said, we were ocean people. He took us out on the boat. We went out for chowder and clam cakes to Rocky Point one time and get back in the boat and the steering went. So it was one of those things where you steer left and the boat goes right.
And then you put your wife on the back of the boat to pull the cables.
Yeah, right. And your son's under the bow because he's always sick. And then we're heading back.
They were ocean people. I was the guy that slept.
You know, then we're heading back to land, and I said, I don't care if we land at Quonset Point and they come out with guns. Get me to land. I said, I'll kiss the ground when we get there. Or all the adventures where he skin dived and came up and forgot to turn his air on when he went down.
Yes,
And dropped. Oh yeah, if you want lobster, you had to go with Pat and drive the boat at midnight.
Yes.
And you know, all those fun adventures. You know, working on boat, working on trail. He loved, and it was just a life. You know, he just moved up here and embrace the wilderness, you know, which you didn't know this much existed out here. So I thank everyone, his family that supported him, his friends that he met, his acquaintances. I mean, he talked to everyone, he enjoyed everyone, never had a harsh word for anybody. Sometimes he had a little, whatever. But, you know, what the heck, you know, it's just maybe both of them had a bad day that day. But I really thank everyone. The town of Southwick that did so much for this trail. Everyone, thank you so much for being here and, you know, being friends, family. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your stories. It was so wonderful to hear all of this and this community here. It's really an amazing and unique thing. You know, I feel like to help continue, you know, one way to continue his memory and his work is to continue making this trail and improving it and stuff. And so we do have a few projects coming up this summer. Our most recent one coming up is June 15th on section 13. We're just doing maintenance, and then we have another one in July on section 14. So, you know, if at any point you want to get involved on the trail, please let me know or Mike know. We would love to have you come out and help us anytime, or, you know, go out for a hike, even anything at all, just let me know, and we would love to have your involvement in any way you would like. But please enjoy the rest of the day and the food and company. It's so wonderful to have all of you here.
Thank you.